What is up, future fighters? And today I'm bringing you another tier list video, another I need views video, another let's catalog 200 characters video. And this time around for the updated 5.4 tier list, which is basically for the month of September. I'm doing this, but I may not be doing this in the future. And what I mean to say is, I have a feeling, and it's cooking inside of me, that the game is moving in a direction where there's just too many characters on the first basically 3 to 4 tiers. There's this weird sort of avalanching happening where more characters are being pushed from the sort of toilet tier all the way to rare tier. They're being pushed over to heroic, legendary, and mythic. That's part of the reason why we introduced the Omega tier to sort of, separate things out. But I think we may need a sort of mass reshuffling. So maybe with the next update, maybe at the end of the year, I don't know, sometime in between. But I think we do need to sort of establish the boundaries and the ground rules and the parameters for each of these tiers. And we need to reshuffle these characters because there's just a lot to unpack. And when you look at the legendary tier and there's like 70 characters in this one tier, it's like, how are you supposed to make any sort of, how are you supposed to get information out of that when you've got more than 10 different blast characters all on the same tier? It makes it a bit difficult to understand, and it makes it a bit difficult to sort of parse, what is really the difference between Magneto and Human Torch. So these wheels are already, these cogs are already turning in my head. I throw that question and I throw that idea back to you in case any of you out there have some outstanding ideas for me. I'm more than happy and I welcome your feedback and to implement it on the videos. But now, with that being said, with that out of the way, additionally, I also want to get it out of the way that I know there is an update sometime in the future. I mean, there's always an update, but I don't know when it's coming. So I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to prolong this tier list for Namor, Magic, and whatever else is coming. I was initially prolonging this tier list because I thought Namor and Magic were coming as a sort of a mid-patch. But now it doesn't seem like they are because we have new events rolling into October. So it seems like it's going to be a brand new update somewhere in the first week-ish of October. So we'll have to wait and see. So anyways, let's jump into what's new here on the list. And of course, we have the toilet tier cut off, but it's not really much to look at. And then we have the bottom of the legendary tier cut off with Iron Hammer and Cull Obsidian, but you're really not missing much. What you really want to look at is the bolded characters, and it might be hard to see. You might have to full screen the video, but let's get into it. Let's talk about it. So let's get the sort of boring ones out of the way first. Kitty Pryde. Honestly, I think she's like Ghost. Really, really good leadership. Solid Shadowland character, sometimes whatever, but nothing that's going to blow you out of the water, and sadly just not going to be up to snuff to compete with anybody on this list otherwise. I may actually want to tweak this list a little bit, but like this specific tier of characters here. But yeah, we have basically back-to-back updates where we get speed type characters who are just not very impressive. Wave and now Kitty Pryde. The damage seems pretty good. The survivability is extremely suspect for a character who can literally phase through anything. So yeah, I don't really have high hopes for her. This one is a bit of a flyer on my part, I have to say. Oh, and also the PSA that I have to say in all of these videos, just to make it clear, these are all my opinions. This entire tier list is not the word of the Netmarble gods. This is just one YouTuber's thoughts and opinions and ideas. So if you disagree with me, that's cool. If you think I'm wrong, that's fine. You can voice your opinions down below, but this is just what I think. But yeah, I'm not really impressed with Kitty, so that's kind of where she ends up, just possibly a forgotten speed character, sadly. And then there's nobody else really on the rest of the heroic tier, so actually everybody else, new character and uniforms, are all legendary plus, and this is what I mean. While none of the characters really blow you out of the water, I mean, probably Colossus is impressing the most people because he's being used everywhere, PvP, PvE, and Cyclops is Cyclops because he's a tier 3. But Rachel and Kid Omega, they have their uses and they're good and they obviously have value, but they're not punching up to, tier 3 Sharon Rogers level. They're not punching up to even Psylocke or Scarlet Witch level in most cases. You could make some arguments about Rachel, but she still seems, a couple of steps behind those characters. But I mean, they're way better than pretty much every other character on this list from Heroic down. Like, they blow these characters out of the water. They're even blowing characters like Jubilee out of the water. Like, compare Kid Omega to Jubilee. where Kid Omega has great damage. He's got a great leadership. He paralyzes world bosses, so he's basically got a 4-second paralyze, which is like mind control. You know, he's got immunity and invincibility. He's got accumulation. Like, what? And then you got Rachel with, you know, mind control, which she does on every skill as a striker. She's got damage increased to the boss takes more damage. She's got a self heal. She's got iframes. Okay. You know, she's got 40% guaranteed dodge. Like, what? So these characters are just strong. They're strong as hell. So that pretty much covers Kid Omega and Rachel Summers. As far as where they land in the legendary tier, it really just comes down to their overall uses. And while I think for a lot of players they're going to have Kid Omega and they might see his value more, you know, relevant than Rachel, because he's also a really great leadership for characters like, you know, Psylocke, of course, but also, you know, Jean Grey, and also Emma Frost without her newest uniform. So he does have a lot of value, but I think overall Rachel is going to have a bigger impact. She's a bit easier to play because she has the mind control and the self-heal, so you get that going. While her rotation is a little bit more awkward, I think overall she's going to have more impact. And of course, she also has the striker ability, which does make her more valuable for, you know, your other 4 world boss runs if you're not using her, even if you're using her for one of them. But I still think she's a touch behind Weapon Hex, so that's kind of a really good comparative for her. They both have self-healing. They both have value as strikers. Weapon Hex just does things a little bit better, and I think possibly Weapon Hex might be a little bit easier to play because she has the all defense down and she has a bit of a tighter rotation, and also her heal extends to the whole team in most content. So I think that's where she sort of falls a touch behind her, but otherwise just a very, very strong character, and same goes with Kid Omega. I would compare him kind of to Mysterio. He doesn't necessarily do all of the same things that Mysterio does, but he ends up being a very strong clear for, and a very easy clear, I would say, for Ebony Maw. He's got a smooth rotation, and he has some value outside of that with the leadership, with the only to-date leadership for mind damage. And then the big surprise here, Colossus, jumping all the way up to the top, near the top of Legendary tier. And some people might disagree with me on Molten Man, Sabretooth, and Juggernaut, but Colossus puts it down. If you build him for PvE, if you slap on a CTP of Rage, he can throw down with Sabretooth and Juggernaut. He's got all defense down everywhere, multiple types of accumulation, iframes. He just puts in work. And then, you know, I don't even have to tell you, you go take a stroll through not just Vibranium, but I bet Platinum and possibly Gold, and he's everywhere. He's on like 80+% of timeline teams just based on that passive. It's that good. It's making other characters better. It's making Thanos way scarier than before. And it's making other characters even more viable, like Silver Surfer, who were just on the cusp of being super meta, but we're missing just a bit of tankiness from, you know, a uniform or a tier 3 that Colossus can basically give them until they do get that, and then imagine what happens when they do. So I'm actually buzzing. I'm really happy about Colossus. I think he absolutely deserves his place here. I'm sort of questioning some of the other characters around here as well, and keep in mind, I'm kind of questioning a lot of the list now that I look at it, but I think this sort of bleeds back into the idea that I feel that there's just too many characters now that are being built too strong. Again, they're not overpowered, but they do seem overpowered compared to everyone in these 3 tiers. Like, they're just embarrassingly good compared. Like, think about it. A year ago, we got Crescent. Think about how bad Crescent is compared to Colossus. I mean, think about how bad Crescent is compared to even like Warpath. Warpath is useful. He doesn't have self-healing, and he doesn't have a leadership, but he can do things himself, and he's a good striker. Crescent is just a glorified leadership. She's basically Kitty Pryde. NANI? I mean, on the other hand, we got a character like Kitty Pryde, so that pretty much mirrors what we got last year with Crescent, and they're both also paywall. So maybe I'm not so wrong after all, or maybe I'm not so right after all, and we're not getting a lot of these OP characters, but that's just how it feels. And then finally, we have the Blast types. I did make a couple of additional changes to the Blast class. I moved Iron Man up a lot. I think I was undervaluing him a little bit, especially for PvE content. He still doesn't have much value for PvP, but it's not non-existent, I should say. And Emma Frost, although she's bolded, oh, he should not be bolded. Although Emma Frost is bolded, no, I'm sorry. I kind of wanted to move Emma Frost down to Legendary just to make a point, like we did with Iron Man before he got his his Endgame Part 3 rework. So I can still do that. I can still hotfix and bring her down. Netmarble, don't test me. You better fix that girl, okay? She needs your help. All right, no one's gonna pay 1,000 crystals for her uniform and then go pay $50 US for some mega mythic uniform rank up ticket for some garbage recycled uniform. It's unacceptable. Seriously, it's unacceptable. But then on the other hand, clap clap for Iron Man and of course Cyclops. And you know what? I think this is a great place to put Cyclops. I think he's just a touch behind Iron Man. He does a lot of the same things that Iron Man does, except he has some things that are better and some things that are worse. You know, he has the healing, which Iron Man has. He's got some iframes. Iron Man has all defense down, which is more helpful. And Iron Man has the time freeze. And Iron Man does more damage on his skills, you know, 1 through 5 than Cyclops does. But then I feel that Cyclops does more damage on his tier 3 skill. And he might not do more damage, but he's much more consistent because Iron Man's tier 3 skill is not an iframe. It can be interrupted, it can be avoided, or you can kind of move out of the way because it's just a directional beam. Whereas on the flip side, Cyclops, once he casts that tier 3 skill, baby, you're not getting away. He jumps up into the air, it's a full iframe, and he blasts down like 2/3 of the arena with that gigantic Rays of Ruin. So I think it's a really, really nice comparison to put those two beasts up against each other, not to mention the fact that they're both 800 CCF blast tier 3s, and I really think this is where they fit overall. But let me know what you think of Cyclops. I could be gushing over him a little bit too much because I think he's really fun to play, despite the fact that I do still think he needs a buff. And let's be clear here, even though I'm putting Cyclops in the Mythic tier, I still think Netmarble should give him a buff, either on his 4th skill with some crit rate all attack, or give him super armor. Just to be clear, I'm putting him a Frost here because that's how good she is, roughly, but she still needs a buff. Just like last time, I had Iron Man in Mythic tier before he got his endgame reworks, but I said he definitely deserves it. I only moved him down to Legendary to make a point, but that doesn't mean the character is actually worse. It just means they still need help. What does that mean for everybody else? Well, they can wait their turn for their uniforms. I understand that it's kind of weird to put a character at the top or near the top of Mythic tier and say they still need help, but when you compare everything and when you compare all these other characters and what they have and how many effects they have and all these skill buffs and everything, you can see why Cyclops deserves a little bit more, especially when you compare the fact that his new uniform, although it changed a lot for the character, it really didn't add a lot. It really just added the heal to his 5th skill. That's really the only big change to his uniform, and it basically took the iframes from his 1st and 2nd skill and then combined them into one long iframe for his 3rd skill. So, with all that blabbing being said, let me know what you all think of the tier list. Let me know what you think of sort of doing a massive overhaul of the tier list and how we can sort of better express the ideas of the tier list in something that looks a bit less top heavy or sort of middle heavy. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you later today. Take care.